I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods, yeah. One in particular, I'm just a messenger, let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box. And you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
What is going on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is December 10th, Friday. We are going to recap the Thursday night football game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Minnesota Vikings, and then we will preview the entire Week 14 of the NFL slate. But before we do that, we would like to say we are a part of the Pigskin Podcast Network. You can follow them at PigskinPodNet on Twitter, or you can search the hashtag TPPN. We all hashtag that as we go live. They have got football, baseball, soccer, hockey, and even wrestling. So they can cover all of your sporting needs. Check them out, as again, we are proud to be a part of that group. Yeah, I'll save that. How are you guys doing on this incredible Friday?
You know, I'd have been doing better if the guy I'm playing against in my biggest money league didn't have Ben, because I had Cook and Jefferson and Deontay Johnson going, and then when the Steelers started making that comeback and Deontay came back to life, but then it was Ben getting all the stuff. So I got 71 points out of the three of them, but he ended up with close to 30 out of Ben, so that was a little bit of a bummer. But I feel like I'm in a win and I'm in situation is kind of where I'm at. So I feel okay going into the rest of the week.
Yeah, I already missed Jonathan Taylor for Week 14. I wish I had him. It's going pretty good here. We went and did a little bit. Our house project is officially done. I sent the final check. They finished all the flooring and everything. I feel like it's been the longest 2.5 weeks. Just kidding. It's really been like 3 months. But, you know, also a little bummed out about the Demaryius Thomas news. For those that haven't heard him passing away. I know the Broncos have announced they're going to do a special tribute this week. You can look for a picture on Sunday, but I'm definitely going to be wearing my DT jersey on Sunday.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go to, and then I was like, oh, maybe I should do introductions first, and then we can talk about that before we get in the game, because it's weird, right? When you think about stuff like that. I mean, you probably had a closer connection to him than we did, being a Broncos fan, him being one of the players who brought a championship to Broncos country. But it's weird because I've been such a big fan of his, because I feel like we get so connected and we feel connected. We feel like we know these players when they help us win fantasy championships, because that matters to us, especially if you're like those type A personalities, right? That you pretend like you don't take this serious, but you do. You want to win every single game. So it really does suck when you see a guy, and someone who seemed to be such a good human being off the field as well, too, right? Like, I don't know who it was. I'll see if I can find her Twitter handle. Someone else retweeted it. But a woman tweeted out some like videos, I guess she had of him, like when he was interacting with kids for some kind of fundraiser or something. She talked about how he was always so much fun to be around. Like, he was always having fun with these kids. And then you see all these people talking about him. There was a video going around of Emmanuel Sanders when DT got traded away, and like how much it hurt him then. And so it always sucks to see that. We don't know what happened. It seems like it was some kind of health-related issues.
Yeah, he had a seizure disorder. They kind of talked about it a little bit in the Denver Post. And I guess he had a little bit of a seizure disorder, and I think that's what caused it. But only 33, would have turned 34 on Christmas. Just nothing but glowing tributes from the people here. Peyton Manning had a lot of really beautiful things to say. Talked about that same thing about him interacting with kids. He was one of my favorite players. He's my second favorite Broncos receiver of all time behind Rod Smith. I was devastated. I was probably sadder when they traded him even than when we traded Von Miller, and you know how much that broke my heart. So, I miss seeing him, and I can't wait for the day they put him in the Ring of Fame here.
Yeah, I know he's my youngest brother. We play fantasy together. We're in a league together, and it's one of his favorite players as well. It took him to 2 fantasy championships. He did not let go of DT until he retired from the NFL. Actually, he held him on his roster even when he was not performing. So yeah, it's horrible to see stuff like that, especially at such a young age. I mean, it hits home a little bit. We are the same age, me and him. So to see that born the same year, I was just like, that's just, prayers to his family and his loved ones, and condolences to his family. I'm sure we'll all be thinking about them, as is everyone who knew him and the man that he used to be. So I did want to just mention that. Obviously, it's heartbreaking to see something like that happen. There is obviously no easy transition from that into football, but we did get a football game last night. The Vikings hold on and beat the Steelers 36-28. Matt, it was a slow start and another poor defensive outing. Are the Steelers in trouble?
Yeah, I think last night, to me, going in was a game that was winnable for them, that I expected that they were going to win, which would have put them at 7-5-1. They have that weird schedule thing because they have a tie on there, but that was a bad beat. And we've seen them this is the third game now in a 4-game stretch where their defense has really gotten gashed for 30-plus points, and I believe they've lost them all. They lost that way to the Chargers. They lost that way to the Vikings. There was somebody else in there. Was it the Bengals also gashed them for a ton of points? That's not a great sign, because this team really relies on having that kind of lockdown defense and then being able to use the running game and stuff. I also think that there's some kind of personality things they're not gelling. It did not look like Chase Claypool was on the same team or on the same page with his team down the stretch there. This isn't the first time that's come up. I know he had some weird comments about not liking the way they structured practice that Mike Tomlin didn't respond to very favorably. I doubt he's going to be too pumped about that exchange last night. They just don't have a good energy, I guess, is what I would say.
I mean, in the past, it would be Ben kind of carrying the team and causing them to rally. Now, Ben is beyond the point where he can do that. He needs a lot of stuff to go right with where he's at. And when you lose TJ Watt and he only plays 36% of the snaps, your defense, when you're getting pressure on the quarterback, your defense plays a lot better. And in the first half, they didn't get any pressure really, and Minnesota got a lot of pressure on Big Ben. Najee was getting hit in the backfield a lot. It was just the team is out of sync this year, and I don't know if it's a function of they're just waiting. They're just clicking off the games until Ben is officially retired, or what. They know they don't quite have the talent all around to, Ben can't overcome the lack of talent around him anymore. That's kind of what it feels like. I don't know what direction they're going to go. I don't think Mason Rudolph is the answer. And as much as it hurts me as a Buckeye to say, I don't think Dwayne Haskins is the answer either, or they've been giving him a little more playing time when Ben was out. So, they come on late. They made some plays late to try to get back into it. But that defense if that defense doesn't play over its head, then I don't think that offense necessarily has what it takes to get them there.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing with Big Ben is we know there's been a lot of rumors. I don't know that he's actually come out and said that he's going to retire, but there have been reports that he's going to retire at the end of the season.
You're right.
They throws last night.
They didn't say Ben didn't say, "Oh, I'm going to retire after this year." Ben said, I think it was something to the effect of, "This is my last year as a Steeler." So Ben left himself an out to go to Denver.
Fair point. I don't.
How dare you? We're in the midst of mourning over here. I don't need that in my life.
I'll be honest here. I mean, and maybe I don't know if you question his off field stuff, but he made some plays last night. Like he wasn't as that throw to Freiermuth. There was a throw to I think it was Deontay as well. Like he still got his arm. I don't know that he hadn't looked great most of the season, but at moments he doesn't look quite as washed. And I mean, let's just be honest. If Freiermuth catches that ball, possibly have a chance to go tie game and into overtime. Deontay Johnson dropped 2 touchdowns, I believe, last night. So the Steelers, I mean, for all the crap we give the offense, it just seems like it takes a little bit of time for this offense to get going every game. I think they're not like right off the bat, just full go, all that firepower like they have been in the past. It seems to take them a little bit of time. Maybe that's because of Ben aging a little bit. I want to give props to Najee Harris, who 90 plus rushing yards last night with an offensive line that could not block the 3 of us rushing at him. I mean, just.
Well, I am highly underrated as a pass rusher.
I agree, you are. I'm like, those guys could probably take me down with one hand, and even then, I could probably get back. I mean, props to him because he earned every single one of those yards last night, and he's still one of the top running. He's got some of the. I believe he's like top. Is he, Matt? You can probably look this up.
Yeah, I will.
Is he top 5 or 6, I think, in rushing yards this season with that offensive line? I mean, it's just props to him for the season he's having as a rookie.
Not to mention, that's a little bit of what's going on with Ben, too. I mean, there was a lot of times last night where he was snapping the ball and somebody was up on him. And I think that's where they miss his escapability a little bit. He is RB5 for fantasy. Let me look at.
Maybe that's what I heard.
Back to Deontay, though.
Yeah.
I know he dropped a couple touchdowns, but they weren't both just gimmies. I mean, they weren't quite as difficult, I think, as the Freiermuth non-touchdown. But that one on the right side on the edge there, side of the end zone, that was a perfectly placed ball, but it would have been a miraculous catch.
He is 5th in yardage, but I would wager unless Nick Chubb dies, he's going to pass him on Sunday.
Yeah, but I mean, still top 10 with that offensive line. I think it's pretty impressive.
Do you know? So Nick Chubb is obviously 6 based on my comments. Do you know who's number 7 in rushing yardage?
Derrick Henry.
No, Derrick Henry's 4 still.
4? That's just ridiculous.
Jonathan Taylor has 1348. He's number 1. Joe Mixon is number 2 with 978, which is how much Dalvin Cook has now after last night. Derrick Henry, 937. Najee Harris is at 873. Nick Chubb's at 867. Mark Ingram, 821 yards.
Good for Mark Ingram. He's
more yards than Antonio Gibson, who's 8, and Ezekiel Elliott, who's 9, and then Lamar Jackson is number 10 in rushing, 762 yards.
That is a very interesting list. I would not have expected you to be reading at week 14 in the NFL season. You just mentioned how high
than we realized.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was playing good for Houston, and he's taken over for Kamara. He was playing good. I mean, I don't remember exactly the stats he was putting up, but he was putting up good fantasy games for the Saints when Kamara was out. You mentioned how high up Cook is. It was a huge game for him, 200 yards here. What do we think, though, of the passing game without Thielen, Dennis?
As long as KJ Osborne keeps doing his best Adam Thielen imitation, I think the passing game is going to be just fine. Osborne has stepped up this season when needed. If everybody's healthy, he's still, 4th down there with Conklin. It's Jefferson, Thielen, and Cook. But Osborne's making a case to take over for Thielen when Thielen retires. And, not that he's given any hints, but Thielen's he's 32 years old or something, 31, 32.
I think he's 34.
Yeah, he's getting up there. So Osborne's making a case to be kept and to be kept around. So I'm not overly concerned. The torch gets passed. We've seen it go from Roddy White to Julio Jones to Calvin Ridley. And it just happens. Marvin Harrison to Marvin Harrison to T.Y. Hilton to Michael Pittman. That's just the nature of the game.
Harrison to Reggie Wayne.
Yeah, I knew I was.
We sort of missed a Hall of Fame receiver in there.
But I think Osborne is definitely, with Thielen out, Osborne is probably a wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 1 upside.
Yeah, I thought last night Osborne. First of all, I sold Adams. Thielen way too short. Dennis is right. He's 31 years old and 110 days, so not anywhere close to the 30. I don't know why I thought he was 34.
I mean, in fairness to you, he doesn't seem like he's quite as explosive as he was a couple of years ago. And I feel like when you get around that 34 age, like somebody here is, the explosiveness wears off really quick. So
anyway, I thought Osborne and Conklin would do well. I was surprised we didn't get a little more out of Conklin. Of course, Chris Herndon's just there to get catches after we declared him fantasy irrelevant. But I thought Osborne looked good.
Hey, I started him somewhere last night, so I'm very happy that he did something. I had to.
He got points.
My tight ends are Harrison Bryant, Logan Thomas, and Chris Herndon. So it was all on Herndon there. I'm very happy that he got me something.
I thought, Osborne would have had an even bigger night if he had one that he just missed in the end zone too on that great, which became controversial hit by Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, it wasn't even that. He missed a couple. Cousins missed him a couple times, and Cousins missed Jefferson a couple times. That he could have had an even big. I think if you go back and
Cousins
look at it,
did not play very well because he threw a couple. He kept. People started making jokes about he was single-handedly keeping the Steelers in the game, which wasn't too far off because Dalvin Cook was killing it. Of course, I don't know who their offensive coordinator is. You have a guy that runs for 178 yards in the first half, and you just decide we shouldn't run, we should throw every play in the second half.
Well, I mean, in fairness to him, the plays were there. Like I said, Jefferson could have easily had at least 3 touchdowns in this one and probably close to 200 yards receiving had Cousin not missed him on a couple. So it was an interesting game, but I mean, crazy. The Vikings get a big win. They stay in the playoff race. So speaking of 2 teams in the AFC in the middle of a playoff race here, the Baltimore Ravens at 8-4 at the 6-6 Cleveland Browns. Matt, what are we expecting out of the Ravens offense in this matchup? They played literally 2 weeks ago, and it was not a aesthetically pleasing game, to say the least.
Yeah, their offense has really been struggling to put up points. We talked about, I think it was on Wednesday, how steady Mark Andrews has been. So he should be in good line for a good game. It's been kind of hit or miss what you get out of Marquise Brown. I think the opportunity is there to get something. They just really don't. Devonta Freeman's been the leader of their running back room, but he hasn't exactly been a powerhouse as a running back. They're still leaning a lot on Lamar Jackson. And I think Cleveland is going to be motivated to try to get this. If they don't win this game, it's going to be hard for them to get into the playoffs. So I think it's going to be another tough game. I'm not expecting much of a shootout here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lower scoring affair, but in the last 5 games, Devonta Freeman is RB10. So
he's fallen into the end zone when he gets a chance.
He's getting it done. It's the Ravens, they're experiencing some growing pains. Lamar isn't the natural progression for Lamar was to run less, but he still wants to run a little more. But to get away from that, you need to have running backs that can carry the load a lot better. And I think, while Freeman has come on, they've been piecing it together all season long with Freeman and Murray and William, duct tape for lack of a better term. But the receivers have to really – somebody has to establish themselves as the alpha that's not Mark Andrews. He's the tight end. Yeah, you can have a highly regarded tight end and do well, but you need to have somebody go Tyreek Hill on that team, and nobody has done that yet.
Yeah, I would really like to see if Hollywood Brown can take that role back over. I mean, those two were really connecting early on in the season. I don't know if it's due to the injury with Marquise Hollywood Brown that he suffered earlier that's kind of slowed him down, but him and Lamar not quite connecting the way that they did earlier in the season. And I agree. The running game is a big thing. I've been mentioning it for weeks. I think it's a big thing for Baltimore. I think it might be what holds them back from being one of the top real contenders in the AFC. I know they're 8-4, but Lamar Jackson, I mean, Matt just mentioned it. He's number 10 in rushing right now. I don't know that he can keep doing that and end up leading this team to a Super Bowl. But I also don't know that you can lean on Devonta Freeman and Latavius Murray. As good as Freeman has been, he's not what J.K. Dobbins could have been in this offense. So maybe we're a year away from seeing Baltimore be a real dangerous team. Dennis, on the Browns side here, I mean, the Ravens' passing defense has struggled. They are the worst pass defense in the NFL. Who do you think benefits from Cleveland in this game?
No, it's going to be a challenge because if they get pressure on Baker, he's going to get rattled. They're down technically 3 tight ends because Steven Carlson has been on IR for most of the season. They're down Bryant. They're down Njoku. And that leaves Austin Hooper, basically. I don't know who they're going to bring up as their 5th string tight end to fill in. So Hooper's gonna lead that room. You got Jarvis Landry. I think Landry's going to lead the team in targets, but he's not a deep threat. They're going to need to – let's see, what's my note say? If Cleveland wants to win, they're going to need to ride the running backs and then hit a couple shots, a couple shock plays with Donovan Peoples-Jones, maybe Higgins. I don't know. Is Schwartz out still?
Yeah, he's still in concussion protocol right now.
So it's going to fall on DPJ and Rashard Higgins to make those big plays down the field.
Yeah, I probably have Jarvis the highest, but there's a couple of leagues where I needed to play, and I'm not going to lie, I put Donovan Peoples-Jones in because I'm hoping, with the state of the Ravens secondary, this feels like the kind of game where you get one of those big YOLO balls.
Yeah, I think DPJ is a great play this week. I think he could be in for a really big game. Jarvis is the known commodity, as Dennis mentioned. He should definitely be in your lineup. I mean, just last week, before the bye, he put up 16 points in a game that, again, was not great for the Browns on this offense against this Baltimore Ravens team. I think DPJ can beat them deep. I'll be very curious, though, to see if Baker can do that. I mean, a week off, he's mentioned that he's feeling a little bit better, but how much better can you really be feeling with some of the injuries that he's had? I'll be very curious to see what this Browns offense looks like.
Oh, man, I still feel like shit.
I would love for him to tell the truth. Absolutely. I don't want him to go out there and be like, oh, no, I feel 10 times better. Shoulders heal as it's cracking, as he's rotating it because it's still broken. Like, just be honest.
It's just hanging limp on the side. He's like, my arm's in perfect shape.
That being said, I mean, this is a huge game for the Browns. If they get this win, they are still technically right in the thick of it. And Baker and a lot of the Browns players have been saying that they know that it's, there's no more time for messing up. I realistically think they probably can't lose a game down the stretch if they want to make it into the playoffs. So with that being said, backs against the wall in Cleveland, I think that they give Cleveland and Browns fans just a tad bit more hope before they dash it later this season. I'm going to take the Browns to beat the Ravens.
Ravens for me.
You might want to update your pick on the sheet then.
Oh, sorry. I'm looking at the other sheet. Browns. I'm going to go Browns.
Are you going Browns or Ravens?
I'm taking the Browns. I'm going to stick with my second choice. I'm going to tinker. I know they say never tinker, but I'm tinkering.
I would love for the Browns to win because I like their franchise, but I'm picking the Ravens. I feel like even though the Ravens have not looked good at any point in time, they just managed to win most of these games.
Yeah. The 2-10 Jacksonville Jaguars at the 8-4 Tennessee Titans. Dennis, Trevor Lawrence asked for more James Robinson. Will he get it?
Well, Urban's an asshole, so probably not. I think it's going to be. I think Robinson is going to have to go out, and he's going to have to make it so that Darrell Bevel and what the hell's their running back coach's name now? It's escaping me.
The guy that got scapegoated. I'll look it up.
Yeah, the guy that got scapegoated, Bernie Parmalee. Robinson has to go out there and make it so that they can't take him off the field unless he raises his hand and says, "Take me out." Against the Tennessee defense, it could happen.
Well, I was excited that Trevor Lawrence was advocating for it. It means Trevor Lawrence has also seen Carlos Hyde run, and Carlos Hyde's been a serviceable back for a lot of years, but I like James Robinson. I think he's one of their best weapons. They said he's good to go, that his heel's a lot better, that his knee's better. Just hope he hangs on to the ball. That being said, I don't really love the Jacksonville offense in general, but I'm hoping, like you, that we will see a little more James Robinson.
I think it's clear. It's like it's go by Trevor Lawrence in dynasty time right now.
Yeah.
Like, take that shot. See if you can get him cheap, especially if somebody who's a contender.
Him and Justin Fields.
Or an early pick. They had an early pick, and so they were able to draft Lawrence. And now their team is better than they expected, and they need a piece that's, an Adam Thielen type piece that's older that you can say, hey, I'll swap you this, and you can go make your run.
Yeah, I mean, my Scott Fishbowl team really hopes James Robinson is more involved. I would be surprised if your star quarterback comes up to you and says, we need to get him more involved. He's the best player on our team. That the head coach is going to be that ignorant to be like, nope, running Carlos Hyde. So, it is possible. Urban is one of those guys who could do it, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think we will get a lot more James Robinson. Matt, Julio Jones is tracking to return. What do we expect from him in this one?
I mean, there is a long-standing tradition of these older dug-in coaches really responding well to players, telling them what they should do with their lineups. So there is hope. Julio Jones has quietly had a semi-disappointing season.
Quietly?
He's only appeared in 6 games. He's caught 31 passes, I think, for 336 yards, no touchdowns. He has not seen more than 5 targets in a game since week 2 of the NFL season. He never has really totally developed chemistry with Tannehill. So I get the impulse that, hey, Julio Jones is back. Let's fire him back up. You're thinking you have like vintage 2018 Julio. I see him more as a wide receiver 3 flex option this week.
Yeah, I think that Julio Jones is going to open up the field for Nick Westbrook-Ikini. So I think that, those 5 targets is probably right in line. Julio's going to, pull the defense back a little bit. I think Nick Westbrook-Ikini gets 7, 8, 9 targets. But it all comes down to, does Julio's hamstring clamp up? If his hamstring clamps up, then Julio's going to be back on the sideline again. So I don't know. I think he could blow up, or he could be a decoy and just pull the coverage away from the other guys.
I would find it very hard to trust putting him in my lineup. I guess I don't disagree with what you guys are saying, the low-end flex play, because, you very much could get a huge game from him, especially with, my goodness, his name just jumped out of my head, A.J. Brown being out and Jacksonville having a horrible pass defense. But, Julio's really given us no indication this year that that's even possible. So I think I honestly believe you probably have a better option than putting him in your lineup this week, but I could be wrong there. That being said, I am taking the Titans to win.
I'm also taking the Titans.
Oh, I just won, but you know what? I'm going to go Jags.
The
6-6 Las Vegas Raiders at the 8-4 Kansas City Chiefs. Matt, which Raiders do we like in this matchup?
I still like Hunter Renfrow because he seems to be the stable guy that they're going at. It looks like Darren Waller might return. And I think if he's back, you definitely have to put him back out there. Oh, no, wait, they ruled him out. So then I'm staying away from Foster Moreau because he did not look good. But I do like Josh Jacobs. We just saw the Chiefs defense get destroyed by Javonte Williams, even in a game that they fairly well dominated. Jacobs has been playing a little bit better lately. He's healthy. Kenyon Drake's gone for the year. I don't think Jalen Richard is a real challenge for touches. So Jacobs and Renfro would probably be the guys I'm playing.
Yeah, I think Richard might still be on the COVID list, if I remember correctly. He's been out for a while with that.
Currently still is, yes.
So that's going to be, who's that other guy that was in Washington last year that they have? They signed somebody from Washington.
I thought they said, though, that Richard had a chance to come off.
Yeah.
He's one of those that we're waiting, much like any potential Chargers receiver.
That is promising. Was it Peyton Barber, Josh Jacobs, and Sutton Smith?
Peyton Barber.
Only 3.
It's going to be a Peyton Barber game. No, we've seen it before. We've seen it happen time and time again, it seems, that somebody gets injured. Everybody's like, the backup is the guy. He's going to go out and kill it. And then he stinks it up that first week. And then the second week he comes out and he actually does kill it. So I don't know that I'd be terribly afraid of Foster Moreau. I've got a league where I'm kind of out of it. I'm not going to make the playoffs. And Waller is my tight end. And I just received an offer for I got Moreau and a third rounder. And I forget. Oh, I gave up KJ Osborne for Moreau and a third rounder. And I thought, I don't know what's going to happen with Osborne. Moreau's probably every bit the dart throw. A third rounder. I've got Waller. But Zach Ertz is my other tight end. So you're going to start Moreau, you're going to start Zach Ertz.
If you're asking, I'm taking Zach Ertz. I have him up in the top 12 range.
Yeah, I have Ertz there, but I wouldn't be surprised if Moreau outscores him, though.
Yeah, I mean, I had him fairly high last week.
I'd be incredibly surprised if Moreau outscores him. I don't think the Raiders' pass offense is doing very well.
Yeah, I think Josh Jacobs is an obvious player to lock in. Outside of him, I don't really feel great about any of the wide receivers. Had this been the Raiders team from even 4 or 5 weeks ago, I think they probably could keep up with Kansas City. But Matt, we talked a little bit about it earlier this week. I feel like the off-field stuff and everything has really kind of hit this team now, and they're just kind of sinking in, unfortunately. On the Chiefs side here, Dennis, is Clyde Edwards-Helaire a good play? And I'll even add, is Patrick Mahomes still a good play?
I think you've got to roll with Mahomes. I don't know that the Raiders' defense is going to scare anybody. They'll make a play here and there. So I don't know that there's 12 other quarterbacks that I would start over Mahomes. I know there's not 24. I think for the ability to make big plays, you still are rolling Mahomes out there. In a redraft league, if Mahomes is your quarterback, even in a 1 QB league, you're probably not rostering a second quarterback. If you are, I'm not sure. Is it, Daniel Jones came to mind, but, is it Mac Jones? Is it, who is it that you're actually rostering? I think most redraft players would have eschewed having a second quarterback if they roster Mahomes. Edwards-Helaire is RB29 in the last 3 weeks. The last 6 weeks he was around RB 49 or 50, I think. Now him and Williams have kind of flipped. So I think that they want to give CEH a little more run. He's the guy that has the most ability. Williams is dependable. Williams is, Macy's Peyton Barber is what Williams is.
Yeah, I'm definitely playing Mahomes. When the Chiefs and the Raiders met earlier, that was the game where Patrick Mahomes threw 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, almost 400 yards. So I think he's in for a good day. I also like CEH. The game against the Raiders was the one where Darrell Williams went completely off, caught a bunch of passes, and ran the ball really well. The Raiders defense has not been good against the run. They've only have 3 games all season where they've allowed less than 100 yards. And in one of those, it was 94 yards and still a rushing touchdown. They've been gashed a lot on the ground. So I think this sets up nicely for CEH as well.
Yeah, I mean, he did not look bad in that first game. With Mahomes, I agree you have to play him, but first time in his career, he has gone 2 straight games without a passing touchdown. But as you mentioned, he threw 5 in the last matchup here. I think he at least gets 3. I think Mahomes bounces back a little bit, but very interesting to see him. I don't want to say game manager, but they're not putting the game on him like they used to. Now they seem to be playing a little bit more defense. So I'm interested to see if that drops Patrick Mahomes from the vaunted 1 or 2 QB ranking moving forward. I'm taking the Chiefs to win the game.
Chiefs for me as well.
Make it a sweep.
The 5-7 New Orleans Saints at the 3-9 New York Jets. Matt, another decent week for Taysom Hill?
Yeah, I think so. The Jets defense doesn't really scare me. I think New Orleans still hanging around in that playoff race, needs a big win here. I think they will get it. Taysom Hill is off the injury report, which I think is a good sign. Obviously has some of those lingering issues, but fantasy production wasn't really his problem last week.
Yeah, I think if vanilla Cam Newton can rush for 100 yards again, that'll help cover up for his 46% passing. I'm not big on Taysom Hill, with the finger issue. You take an already not extremely accurate quarterback, and then we saw what that injury did to Russell Wilson. Yeah. Can he have a decent week? I think he's going to have to rush for it to get it.
I think he will. The Jets defense is so bad. I wouldn't be surprised if Taysom Hill is 100 yards rushing this week with Alvin Kamara still possibly not playing in this one. So
didn't he run for over 100 last week too against
Taysom Hill? Yeah, he did. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Dallas.
I think he could easily. I mean, he put up 27 points last week with having interceptions and not being able to pass the ball well. I would not be surprised if he can't do it again here against a worse defense.
It's just going to be the wishbone, him and Kamara, and then they'll put a fullback back there to block.
Exactly. And the Jets still won't be able to stop it. No Corey Davis. Dennis, how do we feel about Elijah Moore?
I'd feel a lot better if he wasn't limited with his quad issue. He's went 10 for 20 for 123 yards and a touchdown in the last 2 weeks. He had a stretch there where he was, wide receiver 3, I think. I like Mitchell, and he's ascended to the top of the depth chart there. With Davis out, that leaves really Jamison Crowder as the other guy. And Crowder has a very specific skill set. He's a short area, 5-yard A-dot kind of guy who, catches, has a 9-yard per catch average or something like that. So while in those situations in PPR leagues, Elijah Moore has shown that you get him the ball, he's going to do some stuff with it. And so I do like him a lot.
It's a little bit of a tougher matchup. We should probably pour one out for Denzel Mims, too, who's clearly never going to get a shot. Since week 10, Elijah Moore is wide receiver 6. I like him a lot as a play, but as Dennis said, he missed his 3rd straight practice today. They still have him listed as questionable. If he plays, I'm still playing him, but it's definitely worth monitoring.
But New Orleans is also, they're down Cam Jordan, they're down Pete Warner, they're down Marcus Davenport, so they have some issues.
They still have some corners.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if Marshawn Lattimore ends up matching up against more,
Yeah.
him likely being the best option. If
The
more
Jets
plays.
are also missing Tevin Coleman, who got ruled out. So it's Ty Johnson and a lot of wish and prayer. No Mekhi Becton. Maybe Zach Wilson will get to try his hand at running.
Austin
Walker, I think.
Walter
Walker. Austin.
He's so important we can't even put his first and last name together. I'm taking the Jets. I'm sorry, I'm taking the Saints. I tell you, please do not. No, the Saints in this game. I'm sorry.
Nope, you say the Jets first.
I'm taking the Jets. I think Zach Wilson is starting to ascend. He's gonna, make some plays.
I'm taking Taysom Hill.
Vanilla
All right.
Cam Newton.
Tim Tebow Jr.
The 8-4 Dallas Cowboys at the 6-6 Washington football team. Matt, is Zeke still a top 12 option? Should dynasty owners be concerned?
Tebow wishes he could run like Taysom Hill.
I'm going to credit Dennis. I think it was a couple of years ago said that he thought it was time we should move on from Ezekiel Elliott, and you've been totally right. His yards per game went down again this year. I don't think he is a top 12 option. I didn't put him in my top 12 for this week either. He's splitting time with Tony Pollard, and they have so much passing game options. He has not been a good return on investment.
Because they're passing more, it is cutting into Zeke's touches, but I don't know that it's cutting into his snaps. Zeke is probably the preeminent passing down back when it comes to keeping your quarterback clean. He is a stone cold monster. He can block, and then he's a good receiver. So if they don't bring pressure and Zeke doesn't have to stay in there and block, he can get out. But that knee is troublesome. I don't know that how bad Pollard's foot issue is. They said he tore his plantar fascia on that long run.
That's bad.
So if that's
he's
the case,
listed as questionable, though. I mean, they didn't say he was going to miss.
Again, I'll just say not an elite athlete. I'm not. Nobody confuses me with an elite athlete, but I did do that myself. And if you get your foot shot up, you can't play with it without feeling pain.
I mean, Taysom Hill ran for 111 yards last week with it.
Yeah, but he's been dealing with it for a while. It's a little bit easier to deal with after a couple weeks than after it first happens. It feels like you're stepping on knives. It's very painful.
Oh, I know. I tore mine.
Yeah, so I mean, I think he's gonna. Again, you can shoot it up, and it's the NFL. They got the best of the best that they put in those needles, so he might be good. You're playing Zeke if you have him, but I'm with Matt and Dennis. I don't know that you feel great about it. Hope he falls into the end zone once, maybe twice, and you can kind of.
You're hoping he gets 3 or 4 catches for 30 yards, 25 yards,
and falls into the end zone.
35 yards. Rushing.
Yeah. If he can get 12 points, I think I'd be happy with that. Dennis, aside from Gibson and McLaurin, who do you like in this matchup?
Well, Dallas gives up the 10th most fantasy points to tight ends, and Taylor Heineke likes to throw the ball up the seam. Some would even say, he throws his wide receivers and tight ends into coverage. But if Ricky Seals-Jones is back, I'd be happy to fire him up. I know he's tracking to be back now that Logan Wilson is out, and we've seen him be a really, really good receiver earlier this season when Logan Thomas was out. So I don't hesitate too much with that. I like Deandre Carter a little bit. When you get really, really deep into leagues at this time of the year, Carter's playing, and so at some point you're throwing darts to see who's going to be on the field, and Carter is one of those guys that's going to give you, wide receiver 50-ish numbers, and sometimes out of your second flex, that's the best you can hope for.
Yeah, I like Taylor Heineke as a decent QB2 option, and I'm with Dennis. I think Ricky Seals-Jones is a consideration for me at tight end. I don't know about other wide receivers. It looks like McKissick is going to miss. Probably means better things for Gibson. And I had such high hopes for Curtis Samuel preseason, but the good dude can't be on the field for more than a handful of plays.
Yeah, it's definitely disappointing because he would have a really good shot of producing now with Logan Thomas being out. So the one thing that hurt my heart is Dennis was talking about that is like this is such a great matchup for tight ends. And I'm just like pouring out for Logan Thomas. Like so good last week when he came back, and he's been taken from us so soon. I'm gonna take Washington. I think Washington pulls the upset here, stays in the playoff race.
I'm going Cowboys.
Taking the Cowboys.
The 5-7 Atlanta Falcons at the 5-7 Carolina Panthers. Dennis, which Falcons, aside from Patterson, do you feel comfortable playing?
I'm starting to feel very comfortable playing Russell Gage. He's wide receiver 8 over the past 3 weeks, wide receiver 24 over the past 6. So he's getting volume. He's developing trust with Matt Ryan. We had a little resurgence of Mike Davis. For all of the attention that Cordero Patterson is getting, he's lining up at wide receiver, it seems, an awful lot more than he is at running back now. And so that's kind of opening the door for Mike Davis to come back onto the scene a little bit. How much do you trust him? I don't know. It's going to be a little bit of a wing and a prayer. That's not a ringing endorsement.
Mike Davis might be the ultimate YOLO play in week 14 of the NFL season there. For me, Matt Ryan probably just at the bottom of my QB2 where I consider going. It's not a great week for QB. So in Superflex, he is a consideration. Kyle Pitts actually is tight end 9 on the season. He hasn't had those big, huge performances that we expected, but he's been fairly steady. He has had at least 2 receptions in every game, and he's only had less than 6 targets in a game twice this season and none in the last few weeks. So he's a part of what they're doing. I think he's a tight end option, and I'm with you. Russell Gage has moved back into flex territory for me.
Look, if Pitts isn't getting 12 targets and 10 catches and 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, he's not worth starting. Weren't you here in the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, that's how people have treated it. But Matt and I think, talked about this on Wednesday. He's been a lot better than people realize.
Yeah, he has.
Matt, on the Panthers side here, bounce back week for Cam Newton, and how about DJ Moore?
I still have DJ Moore as a low-end wide receiver too, because I'm still holding out hope. I was thinking Cam Newton might be in for a better week. It sort of bothers me that Matt Rule is talking about getting some snaps for PJ Walker, because that makes you think they're not really settled at that position. But I have Cam Newton as a high-end QB2.
I don't know if by bounce back you mean 12 for 23 for 149 yards and an interception with 77 yards rushing and a touchdown, then yeah, I think Cam Newton bounces back. But I think, he's shot. He's in Big Ben territory for me.
The first 2 games that he came back, it was so encouraging. Last game wasn't really good. They had a bye, and I'd be curious to see in general what the offense looks like having gotten rid of their offensive coordinator.
Yeah, that's going to be problematic.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see as well. I mean, Cam Newton, we talked a little bit about it when they signed him. He was literally sitting on the couch weeks before that. So getting more and more game time, can he get a little bit better? I think so. I think now, though, unfortunately, as Matt, you just mentioned, throwing in another wrench into it by getting rid of your offensive coordinator isn't going to make things any easier. I think there's a better shot we see DJ Moore bounce back than Cam Newton, and even that I think is a little bit of a stretch. I'm going to take Atlanta. I don't really feel great about either one of these teams, but I'll take Atlanta.
I'm taking the Panthers to win ugly.
I'm also taking the Panthers.
The 4-8 Seattle Seahawks at the 2-10 Houston Texans. Matt, is there any interest in the Seahawks backfield?
You'd think maybe you'd be interested.
No.
We've seen
the right answer was no. That was the right answer. It was no. Move on.
Well, I was going to say that you would hope there would be somebody to play, because Houston's rush defense has been god awful. But the Seahawks are probably going to use 4 or 5 backs in this game, and none of them will put up anything worth playing.
DJ Dallas running back to Top 24.
Wow, that was a big. He didn't even get any touches last week. Travis Homer was the one.
I think Homer got hurt though, didn't he?
I think he's still tracking to play.
Oh, okay.
I mean, Homer just had the big splash play on the fake punt, the 73.
Oh, no, you're right. Homer got ruled out. Well, that limits it to only having 5 running backs. It'll probably be the Rashad Penny breakout game just to give Dennis some semblance of hope.
Yeah, he's back on the train. Davis Mills is back in for Houston. Dennis, is there a Texan you're confident playing?
No. I mean, if you have Cooks, you're probably starting him in a flex. You know, if you have David Johnson or Rex Burkhead, you know, you're probably putting in time till, you know, you're probably just trying to get through week 14 and move on to something else.
Yeah, that's maybe I'm flexing Brandon Cooks, but I don't really want any Texans. I think they're not only probably the worst NFL team, they are the worst fantasy team.
Agreed, and that's why I'm taking the Seahawks barely to win this game.
I'm taking the Seahawks too.
Seahawks for me as well. Hey, football fans, I'm sure we all love an action-packed, high-scoring NFL game, but with the latest no-brainer from DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, you'll be a winner once a single point is scored. New customers who bet just $1 on any team to score can win $100 in free bets. You can still get in on the NFL action. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Sports Contest. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TPPN. Bet $1 on any team to score with $100 and win $100 in free bets. If they score, you score with promo code TPPN this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problems? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The 1-10-1 Detroit Lions are going up against the 6-6 Denver Broncos. Dennis, no Swift, no Jamal Williams, no TJ Hawkinson. Why is Jamar Jefferson the only player worth starting here?
You know, he's popped a little bit, but
he's definitely popped.
I don't know if Igwebuike popped off the same time when Jamar Jefferson did in that same game. Igwebuike got snaps over Jefferson last week. I think it is a Jamar Jefferson game, but I think it's going to be a coin flip. It wouldn't surprise me to see a 50-50 touch split. But I think that Denver defense, though, is going to be problematic for Jared Goff.
It's probably going to be problematic for the rushers, too. They've been pretty good up front. I don't think there is a Lion that I feel good about playing, but if I had to YOLO a Lion, it would probably be Amon-Ra St. Brown.
And Jamar Jefferson. Top 24 this week at running back. It's going to happen.
I wasn't bullish on their running game when I thought they'd have Jamal Williams. So
Jamar Jefferson. Better than Jamal Williams. You heard it here first. Matt, which Bronco do you like as a play here?
The one I'm all in on is Javonte Williams. I know Melvin Gordon probably is tracking toward being active, but he's still banged up. And after what we saw last week, Javonte Williams actually RB19 on the season, even playing with Melvin Gordon. He's been very good. I don't think they're going to have to throw the ball a lot, and there are too many passing game options and not enough good plays from Teddy Bridgewater, as in there are 5 a game, for you to sustain any kind of faith in a receiver.
I mean, if there was ever a get-right game for Cortland Sutton, this has to be it.
You'd have to have a quarterback that could throw more than 10 yards down the field.
He can run after he catches the ball. I've seen him do it.
You have more faith than I do. I'm sorry. I would play the Denver defense, though, here.
Javonte for me. And Jamar Jefferson, who's going to lead the Lions to a victory. Taking the Lions and Jamar Jefferson.
Are you really?
I take my guy, Jamar. Lions and Jamar, baby, all day long.
Watch him be a game day inactive.
Broncos for me.
That'd be my luck, actually.
I'm taking the Broncos too, and now I'm nervous.
Never doubt Jamar Jefferson. The 4-8 New York Giants at the 7-5 Los Angeles Chargers. Dennis, Mike Glennon is in at QB. Is there any Giant receiver you now trust?
Define trust.
Willing to put them in your lineup and expect them to score a modicum amount of fantasy points.
That's the Chargers give up the second fewest fantasy points to wide receivers and the fifth most to running backs. So I'm looking for Saquon Barkley to have a good game here. I think that protects Glennon. He's going to have to take a couple shots, and he'll probably do it to Evan Ingram or something, Kyle Rudolph instead of Kenny Galladay, or looks like Sterling Shepard might be tracking back, or it'll end up being John Ross on some deep fly for some crazy ass reason with a sick of this touchdown. Shout out to Joe Dolan. I don't know. I'm probably trying to avoid the wide receivers if I can.
Yeah, the Giants' passing game offense has been a mystery since Freddie Kitchens took over. They haven't really developed any kind of sense of consistency or rhythm. Dennis is right. They targeted Darius Slayton a lot last week, but he didn't really produce anything. So I'm probably staying away from all of them. It does look like Shepard might be back.
Yeah, I am. I'm with you guys on that. Avoiding everybody here because I think the Chargers defense can probably get home. And again, I don't know. Barkley is probably the only player I feel comfortable playing just because the Chargers would allow me to get like 1.7 yards a carry on them. So that's just how bad this defense is against the run. Matt, Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are on the COVID list, but Williams could play because he is on there because of close contact. How does this change the Chargers' game plan for you if either or both end up missing?
Yeah, and the latest from Brandon Staley is that he expects Williams and Chris Harris Jr. to come off because they were close contacts. They've consistently tested negative. There's going to be a huge difference between having Mike Williams in the passing game and having just Jalen Guyton and Josh Palmer. Either way, I think it bodes well for Austin Eckler.
Yeah, I think, you're looking at a 15-target game for Austin Eckler. I think even if Williams is in, though, Guyton is definitely worth a shot to play in your flex spot. He's popped off. He's a good deep threat. I feel like he'll end up out-snapping Josh Palmer. I think he's just a more natural receiver. So Williams will be the 1, Guyton will be the 2, Palmer will be the 3, but Austin Eckler will really be the 1.
I also think Jared Cook and Donald Parham are decent options at the tight end position because Giants are not great against tight ends.
Yeah, I moved Cook way up in my ranking, especially after the Keenan Allen news. I think him and, of course, obviously Eckler are in for massive games here, and I'm taking the Fighting Justin Herberts to win this game.
I'm also taking the Chargers.
Chargers for me as well.
6-6 49ers at the 7-5 Cincinnati Bengals. Matt, Debo is questionable. How do we feel about the passing game for San Francisco?
Yeah, it's interesting. It seemed like he only had eyes for George Kittle last week. Debo is still listed as questionable, which is a promising sign that he could potentially play. Elijah Mitchell has been ruled out. So I would think if Debo plays, they might try to use him in the rushing game again, as they have when Mitchell's been out or injured before. The real question for me is Brandon Ayuk, because he looked like he was kind of coming on and then last week sort of disappeared. I think all three of them are potentially decent plays in a game that you figured might be a little more up-tempo, but it's hard to have complete faith that everyone's going to get opportunity.
Yeah, and last week it wasn't that Ayuk didn't get opportunity. He only converted 50% of his targets. If he catches 1 or 2 more of those, maybe he earns. If he catches 1 more, maybe he earns a 7th target. and is able to do something else with that. Ayuk has worked his way out of the doghouse, but if everybody's healthy, he's still third behind Kittle and Debo. I like him to be able, if all three of them are playing this week, it depends on if somebody gets hot like Kittle did last week. I mean, when you got somebody that's just dominating like that, it's hard to go away from them. So do I expect another 12 target game for George Kittle? Probably more 8 or 9 is more realistic. How much they throw is going to be dependent upon how well Cincinnati executes their offense. If Cincinnati's putting up a lot of points, that puts pressure on Jimmy G and San Francisco to throw to keep up. I don't know. If the question is, how do I feel about the passing game? Outside of Kittle, I'm apprehensive. If I got him and they're playing, I'm definitely starting him. But I'm apprehensive that, I recognize that it could go bad.
Speaking of passing targets here, Dennis, do you have any interest in playing CJ Uzoma this week for the Bengals?
Depends on which team I'm talking about. I've got some teams I would love to have CJ Uzoma, and other teams I don't want anything to do with him. He's inconsistent. I'm all about that T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon action. So I think if you're starting Uzoma, it's more of a desperation play.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. I have him as low end tight end too. I do think it's worth monitoring Joe Mixon. He's been out with an illness all week, and there is a potential that he could miss, in which case Samaje Perine would be a pretty nice play.
Yeah, he should be in for a pretty good workload if Mixon ends up missing. As much as I think San Francisco needs this win, I think Cincinnati continues to roll. I'm taking them to win the game.
Bengals for me as well.
Yeah, I'm also taking the Bengals.
Probably the most interesting game here this week. The 7-5 Buffalo Bills at the 9-3 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Matt, what do the Bills need to do to get a win?
Man, they need to be able to force a couple of turnovers on defense, and they've got to be able to stay away from turnovers on offense while making some big plays. Tampa Bay's secondary is probably the weaker part of their defense, which actually lines up well with the Buffalo offense, which has struggled to run the ball, but has some decent passing weapons. They need a big day from Diggs. They need a big day from Dawson Knox, and they need a big day from Josh Allen.
Yeah, I think they need to grind the clock and keep the ball away from Brady. Unfortunately, that's not how the Bills are made. And they're going up against Brady with a fistful of dollars. He's got all those weapons, and Gronk and Godwin and Evans and Fournette. Tampa is built the way Buffalo needs to be built to play against Tampa. I mean, they can grind the clock. Lenny is perfectly happy carrying the ball 30 times for 65 yards if it means Tampa gets out of there with the win.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think the one thing Buffalo's going to have to do is try and slow down Fournette, which we've seen when they're playing some of these better running backs. They have not been able to do that this year. And I would not put Fournette up there in the category of like a Jonathan Taylor or a Derrick Henry. But they were run all over by Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, and I do think it's fair to say he's better than both of those guys. So they're going to have to come out there and play really good defense, and someone else is going to have to step up for them besides Josh Allen. I mean, they're putting so much on his shoulders. I know we talked a little bit about this earlier in the week, Matt. I think they are in dire need of a good running back, and I would not be surprised if they don't reach for one in the draft this year or try and take somebody in free agency to try and balance out this offense. Because, I mean, Josh Allen just can't keep carrying this team to the promised land. How do we feel about Tom Brady going up against his old rivals here, Matt?
Yeah, I think they should be in for a good game. We saw Buffalo's defense get gashed on the ground, which bodes well for Fournette, but we've also seen them, their secondary is a little beat up too, and Tampa Bay seems pretty locked in with the triumvirate of Gronkowski, Godwin, and Evans.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about rivals and Tom Brady, everybody is Brady's rival. I mean, that's what makes him so good is he has that me against you, no matter who you are. He's out to show you he's better. And he's got an arsenal of receivers, a back that can pound it. He's the smartest quarterback in the game today. So while he has the opportunity, they're going to be in Tampa with great weather, so he can make a bunch of big plays throwing the ball down the field. But he's not going to get hung up if he has to win the game, 20-17.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it at all. You could argue this is one of the better teams he's ever had around him offensively going up against the Bills, even from his time in New England. You take away the Randy Moss year, and I think with having Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Leonard Fournette, Rob Gronkowski, Cameron Brate, O.J. Howard, even throw Ronald Jones in there. I mean, they're loaded. I don't think Brady's.
Wait, Ronald Jones is still in the league?
He is I think. I'm not sure. Might have to double check that. Someone fact check me, but I'm pretty sure he's still there.
Waterboy counts as in the league, right?
Yes, that does. Yes, technically. He fans. I think he fans Bruce Arians too. I'm almost positive that's him. I swear that's him. I'm taking Josh Allen on the Bills with the upset here. I think backs against the wall. They got to get a big win here.
Yeah, there's no place to hide, and I think that Tom and Tampa Bay roll over them.
I would love for the Bills to win, but this feels like the kind of game that they get blown out. I'm taking the Buccaneers.
Well, if you love for them to win, you should pick them. Put that good energy onto the atmosphere. It's not worked
well for me to pick them so far a lot this year, so maybe it'll work better for me if I pick against them. That's what happens with Denver. When I pick them, they lose. When I don't pick them,
wait, really? So Jamar Jefferson season, I'm telling you, it's happening. It's happening.
Just in time for the holidays, get your fantasy football roundtable gear at ViridianGlobal.com. So it's the 10th. You'll get. I ordered some stuff. I got it like within 5 days. So you can get. You've still got time. Snapback hats, trucker hats, t-shirts, 3/4 sleeve raglans, and my favorite, hoodies, all adorned with the Fantasy Football Roundtable logo. Get 10% off Fantasy Football Roundtable gear this week with code Roundtable. That's ViridianGlobal.com/Roundtable and use code Roundtable for 10% off.
All right, let's jump into the last two games here. The Sunday Night Football game between the 4-8 Chicago Bears and the 9-3 Green Bay Packers. Dennis, Justin Fields and Allen Robinson are back. What are we expecting from them?
I mean, are we expecting anything? It's week 14. They've struggled. It's, again, rumors are floating around. Nagy's going to be let go after this game. It's, I hope that they play well. But if I can, I've got Allen Robinson on probably a half a dozen teams. And right now he's on my bench in all of them. I think Justin Fields is going to be a good NFL quarterback. But again, much like Trevor Lawrence, if you're playing Dynasty, this might be a time to try to go out and pick him up, see if you can get him for cheap.
Yeah, I'm hoping they come in energized a little bit. Justin Fields, before he had that game where they destroyed his ribs, looked like he was improving a little bit as a passer. David Montgomery's come on strong the last couple of weeks, and I'm calling it. Allen Robinson's getting a damn touchdown this week.
It's going to be great for everybody's fantasy benches.
I sat him in all my leagues.
No, I put him back in my lineup in a couple of leagues. I was like, now, when?
The one true believer, because I guarantee you nobody else is starting him. I'd love it, though. I mean, if he could come on strong here at the back half of the season for all of us who have held on to him all year long, because I'm also one of them, and a couple of my redraft leagues, he's just been sitting on that bench hoping that he can come back strong. I would love to be able to slide him into my lineup and have him help me win a fantasy championship. Jair Alexander's not there, so maybe it's possible. I think this could be a good game, but I just don't. I got to see it first before. And that's the worst part about it is we're not gonna trust him this week. Matt, you're gonna end up being right. He's gonna go like for 100 yards and a touchdown, and we're all gonna get excited. He's gonna go back into our lineups next week, and then the first round of the fantasy playoffs is gonna give us 2 points, 2 catches for like 6 yards.
Chicago has a lot of has 2 games with Minnesota down the stretch, and their defense
and Green Bay,
what we would call present. No, this is their second game with Green Bay.
Oh, is it? I thought they had.
Yeah, they got week 6 when Aaron Rodgers told Chicago that he still.
Oh, yeah. He's their daddy. Yeah, I forgot about that. For the Packers here, Dennis, how do we expect the backfield split to be between Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon?
I wouldn't be surprised if they split the snaps pretty equally. Dillon has showed he can handle it. And maybe even the carries split kind of equally with, Dillon kind of the outside. But I would expect Jones to have the edge in targets. So I don't know. I guess I'd go 55-45 Jones over Dillon overall.
Yeah, and I think Jones goes back to being the starter. The question for me is how this game goes. If it remains relatively close, I think Jones probably ends up with a pretty decent share of the snaps. If Green Bay gets up big, I think they're going to switch to more. Dillon feels like the pounder in that backfield, especially as they're getting close to a playoff run. They're going to try to get into the mode of making sure Aaron Jones is available to them in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think you start both of them this week, to be honest with you. I think Aaron Jones can get enough in those first 2 quarters, and then I'm with Matt. I think it's the A.J. Dillon show after halftime, after the Packers are up like 24-7, and he just grinds away on the Chicago Bears defense, which is missing a couple of their key starters as well. I'm taking the Packers to win this game, and not necessarily a very close game either.
Pack for me as well.
I am also taking the Packers.
All right, the last game of Week 14, and it looks to be a very good game. The 8-4 Los Angeles Rams at the 10-2 Arizona Cardinals. Matt, Henderson is tracking to be available. What will the Rams' backfield split look like?
Yeah, and I thought Sony Michel looked very good last week, albeit it was against Jacksonville. The Rams have tended toward wanting to use one dominant back, but they have at times not been afraid to mix guys in there. I think Henderson probably, if healthy and available, ends up going back to being the lead back. But I think we are in a different spot than we were earlier in the season where Sony Michel basically disappeared. I think Sony Michel has played well enough, and we're closer to the end of the season where, much in the same way that Green Bay is looking toward the postseason, wanting to make sure Aaron Jones is there, the Rams will try to protect Darrell Henderson a little bit, and I think Sony Michel is going to get a decent snap count.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I agree with your statement that they like to go with a guy. So it feels like it's 18 carries for Henderson, 5 carries for Michel. In part, I think the feeling is we think Henderson is better than Michel, so therefore we'll play Henderson. But we're also confident in Michel, so if something happens to Henderson, we feel like we've got a guy we can just plug and play and be just about as effective. But as we're trying to make our way towards the playoffs, we want to play our best players. And they're going against the number 1 seed right now in Arizona. So I think McVay plays his studs. He goes fantasy and plays his studs.
Arizona is also dealing with what looks like going to be a backfield split with Chase Edmonds tracking to return. Matt, what do you think the split will be in Arizona?
I think it's going to be back similar to what we've seen before. James Conner is the better power runner and is more of the red zone goal line guy, and Chase Edmonds is more of a gadget weapon and a passing game player, and I think they will both have fantasy value.
I don't know if Edmonds has that much fantasy value this week. I feel like the Cardinals, a routine in what Edmonds has been out, 6 weeks, 7 weeks? He's been out.
No, he got hurt the same time as Kyler Murray.
5, I think, right? I think it's 5.
So
They had a bye, so he missed 4 games.
So
yeah, okay.
Connor had showed that he could carry the load, that he could do the work. I think that, I'm still expecting a big game from Connor. I think Edmonds, you're kind of hoping he catches enough passes that he gets into the end zone.
Yeah, I would definitely believe a little bit more in Connor still because of the way they use him in the red zone. But with that being said, I'm going to take the Rams. I think Stafford and McVay are slowly starting to figure this out and get a big win against the top seed in the NFC and their NFC West rivals.
I'm going with the Cardinals.
I am also taking the Rams.
All right, so that will do it for us today. Everybody enjoy your weekends. We will be back on Monday to recap everything that happened in Week 14 and start getting everybody ready for the playoffs already. 2021 fantasy football playoffs are here. Good luck. Hope everybody brings home that win to secure yourself a playoff spot, a bye, whatever it is you need. I hope that you get it. We will